Good morning and welcome again. I'm reading from Joshua 8, Joshua from the Old Testament of the Holy Bible, from chapter 8 onwards. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear not, neither be dismayed. Take the people of war with thee, arise, go up to Ai, and I have given unto thy hand the king of Ai, and the people and his city and his land. And thou shalt do to Ai and her king as thou didst unto Jericho and her king. Only the spoil thereof and the cattle thereof shall ye take for a prey unto yourself. Lay thee an ambush for the city behind it. And so Joshua arose and all the people of war to go up against Ai, and Joshua chose out 30,000 men of valor and sent them away by night. And he commanded them, saying, Behold, ye shall lie in wait against the city, even behind the city. Go not far from the city, but be ye all ready, and I and all the people that are with me will approach unto the city. And it shall come to pass, when they come out against us, as at the first, and we will flee before them. For they will come out after us, till we have drawn them from the city. For they will say, They flee before us, as at first. Therefore will we flee before them. Then ye shall rise up from the ambush, and seize upon the city, for the Lord your God will deliver it into your hand. And it shall be, when ye have taken the city, that ye shall set the city on fire. According to the commandment of the Lord shall ye do. See, I have commanded you. And Joshua therefore sent them forth, and they went to lie in ambush, and abode between Jerusalem and Bethel and Ai, and on the west side of Ai. But Joshua lodged that night among the people. And Joshua rose up early in the morning, and numbered the people, and went up, he and the elders of Israel, before the people of Ai. And all the people, even the people of war that were with them, went up and drew nigh, and came before the city, and pitched on the north side of Ai. Now there was a valley between them and Ai. And he took about 5,000 men, and set them to lie in ambush between Bethel and Ai on the west side of the city. And when they had set the people, even all the host that was on the north of the city, and the liers in wait on the west of the city, Joshua went that night into the midst of the valley. And it came to pass, when the king of Ai saw it, that they hasted and rose up early, and the men of the city went out against Israel to before the plain, and he was not there, that there were liers in ambush against him behind the city. And Joshua and all Israel made as if they were beaten before them, and fled by the way of the wilderness. And all the people that were in Ai were called together to pursue after them. And they pursued after Joshua, and were drawn away from the city. And there was not a man left in Ai or Bethel that were not out after Israel. And they left the city open, and pursued after Israel. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Stretch out the spear that is in thy hand toward Ai, for I will give it into thy hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand toward the city, and the ambush arose quickly out of the place. And they ran out as soon as he had stretched out his hand, and they entered into the city, and took it, and hasted, and set the city on fire. And when the men of Ai looked behind them, they saw, and behold, the smoke of the city ascended up to heaven. And they had no power to flee this way or that way. And the people that fled to the wilderness turned back upon the pursuers. And when Joshua and Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city, and the smoke of the city ascended, then they turned again and slew the men of Ai. And the order issued out of the city against them. So they were in the midst of Israel, some on this side, some on that side. And they smote them, so that they left none of them remain or escape. And the king of Ai they took alive, and brought him to Joshua. And it came to pass, when Israel made an end of it, saying, all the inhabitants of Ai in the field and in the wilderness wherein they chased them, when they were all fallen on the edge of the sword, until they were consumed, that all the Israelites returned unto Ai, and smote it with the edge of the sword. And so it was, that all that fell that day, both of men and women, were 12,000, even all the men of Ai. For Joshua drew not his hand back, wherewith he stretched out the spear, until he had utterly destroyed the inhabitants of Ai. Only the cattle and the spoil of the city Israel took for a prey for themselves, according to the word of the Lord, which he commanded unto Joshua. And Joshua burnt Ai, and made it a heap forever, even a desolation unto this day. And the king of Ai he hanged on a tree until eventide. And as soon as the sun was down, Joshua commanded that they should take his carcass down from the tree and cast it at the entering of the gate of the city, and raised thereon a great heap of stones that remaineth unto this day. Then Joshua built an altar unto the Lord God of Israel in Mount Ebal. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded the children of Israel, as it is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of which stones, over which no man lift up any iron. And they offered thereupon burnt offerings unto the Lord, and sacrificed peace offerings. And he wrote there upon the stones a copy of the law of Moses, which he wrote in the presence of the children of Israel. And all Israel and the elders and the officers and the judges stood on the side of the ark, and on the side before the priests of the Levites, which bare the ark of the covenant of the Lord, as well as the stranger, as he that was born among them, half of them over the mount of Gerizim, half of them over against Mount Ebal, as Moses the servant of the Lord had commanded them. And they should bless the people of Israel. And afterward he read all the words of the law, the blessings and the curses, according to all that is written in the book of the law. There was not a word of all that Moses commanded which Joshua read not before all the congregation of Israel, with the women and the little ones and the strangers that were conversant among them. Chapter 9. And it came to pass, when all the kings which were on this side of Jordan, in the hills and in the valleys, and in the course of all the great sea, over against Lebanon, the Hittite and the Amorite, the Canaanite and the Perizzite, the Hivite and the Jebusite, heard thereof. Then they gathered themselves together to fight with Joshua and with Israel with one accord. And when the inhabitants of Gibeon heard what Joshua had done unto Jericho and to Ai, they did work willily, and went and made as if they had been ambassadors, and took old sacks upon their asses, and wine bottles, old and rent and bound up, and old shoes, and clouted upon their feet, and old garments upon them, and all the bread of the provisions was dry and mouldy. They went to Joshua unto the camp at Gilgal, and said unto him and to the men of Israel, We be come from a far country, now therefore make ye league with us. And the men of Israel said unto the Hivites, Peradventure ye will dwell among us, and how shall we make a league with you? And they just said unto Joshua, We are their servants. And Joshua said unto them, Who are you, and where do you come from? And then they said unto him, From a very far country, thy servants are come because of the name of the Lord thy God, for we have heard the fame of him, and all that he did in Egypt, and all that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites that were beyond Jordan, to Sihon king of Heshbon, and Og king of Bashan, which was at Ashtaroth. Wherefore our elders and all the inhabitants of our country spake unto us, saying, Take victuals with you for the journey, go and meet them, and say unto them, We are your servants, therefore now make ye league with us. This our bread we took hot for our provision out of the houses on the day we came forth to go unto you. But now, behold, it is dry, and it is mouldy. The bottles of wine which we filled were new, but behold, they be rent. These our garments and shoes are become old by reason of the very long journey. And the men took of their victuals, and asked not counsel at the mouth of the Lord. And Joshua made peace with them, and made league with them, to let them leave. And the princes of the congregation sware unto them. And it came to pass at the end of 3 days after they had made league with them, that they were together with their neighbors that they dwelt among them. And all the children of Israel journeyed, and came unto the cities on the 3rd day. Now the cities were Gibeon, Kephirah, and Beeroth, and Kirjath Jearim. And the children of Israel smote them not, because the princes of the congregation had sworn unto them by the Lord God of Israel. And all the congregation murmured against the princes. And all the princes said unto the congregation, We have sworn unto them by the Lord God of Israel, now therefore we may not touch them. This we will do to them, we will even let them leave. Let wrath be upon us. Let them be hewers of wood and drawers of water up unto all the congregation, as the princes had promised them. And Joshua called for them, and spake unto them, saying, Wherefore have ye beguiled us, saying, We are very far from you, and we dwell among you. Now therefore be ye cursed, and none of you shall be freed from being bondmen, and hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God. And they answered Joshua and said, Because it was certainly told thy servants, how that the Lord thy God commanded his servant Moses to give you all the land, and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Therefore we were sore afraid of our lives because of you, and have done this thing. And now, behold, we are in thine hand, as it seemeth good and right unto thee, to do unto us to do. And so he did unto them, and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, that they slew them not. And Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the congregation, and for the altar of the Lord, even unto this day, in the place which he should choose. Chapter 10. And now it came to pass, when Adoni-Sedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai, and had utterly destroyed it, and had not done to Jericho and her king so he had done to, as he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel, and were among them, that they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, because it was smarter than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty. Whereof Adoni-Sedek, king of Jerusalem, sent unto Hoham, king of Hebron, and Piram, king of Jarmuth, and unto Shephiah, king of Lachish, and unto Debir, king of Eglon, saying, Come up unto me and help me, that we may smite Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and the children of Israel. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together, and went up, they and all their hosts, and encamped before Gibeon, and made war against it. And the people of Gibeon sent unto Joshua to the camp to Gilgal, saying, Slack not thy hand from thy servants, come up unto us quickly, and save us and help us, for the king of the Amorites that dwell in the mountains are gathered together against us. And Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of war valor. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear them not, for I have delivered them into thine hand. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. And Joshua therefore came upon them suddenly, and went up from Gilgal all night. And the Lord discomfited them before Israel, and slew them with the great slaughter of Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth up to Beth-horon, and smote them to Azekah, and unto Makkedah. And it came to pass, as they fled from before Israel, and they were going down to Beth-horon, the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they were dead. There were more which died with hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day which the Lord delivered of the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, thou stand still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is it not written in the book of Yashar? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it and after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, unto the camp of Gilgal. And these 5 kings fled and hid themselves in the cave at Makkedah. And it was told to Joshua, saying, The 5 kings are found hid in the cave at Makkedah. And Joshua said, Roll great stones upon the mouth of the cave, and set men by it for to keep them. And stay ye not, but pursue after your enemies, and smite the hindmost of them. Suffer them not to enter into their cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hand. And it came to pass, when Joshua and the children of Israel had made an end of slaying them with the great slaughter till they were consumed, that the rest which remained of them entered into fenced cities. And all the people returned to the camp to Joshua at Makkedah in peace, none moved his tongue against any of the children of Israel. And Joshua said, Open the mouth of the cave, bring out the 5 kings unto me out of the cave. And they did so, and brought forth those 5 kings unto him out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And it came to pass, when they brought out the kings unto Joshua, Joshua called for all the men of Israel, and said unto the captains of the men of war which went with him, Come near, put your feet upon the neck of these kings. And they came near, and put their feet upon the necks of them. And Joshua said unto them, Fear not, now be dismayed, be strong and of good courage, for thus says the Lord to all your enemies against whom you fight. And afterward Joshua smote them, and slew them, hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging upon the trees until the evening. And it came to pass at the time of the going down of the sun, that Joshua commanded, and they took down off the trees, and cast them into the cave wherein they had been hid, and laid great stones in the mouth's cave, which remaineth there until this day. And that Joshua took Makkedah, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and the king thereof he utterly destroyed them, and all the souls that there were in. And he let none remain. And he did to the king of Makkedah as he did unto the king of Jericho. And Joshua passed from Makkedah, and all Israel with him, unto Libnah, and fought against Libnah. And the Lord delivered it also, and the king thereof, unto the hand of Israel. And he smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that there were therein. He let none of it remain in it, and did unto the king thereof as he did unto the king of Jericho. And Joshua passed from Libnah, and all Israel with him, unto Lachish, and encamped against it, and fought against it. And the Lord delivered unto Lachish unto the hand of Israel, which took it on the 2nd day, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that were therein, according to all that he had done to Libnah. Then Horam king of Gezer came up to Lachish, and Joshua smote him and his people, until he had left him none remaining. And from Lachish Joshua passed unto Eglon, and all Israel with him, and they encamped against it, and fought against it. And they took it on that day, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and all the souls that were therein he utterly destroyed that day, according to all that he had done to Lachish. And Joshua went up from Eglon, and all that were with him, unto Hebron, and they that fought against it. And they took it on that day, and smote it with the edge of the sword. And Joshua went up from Eglon, and all Israel unto him unto Hebron, and they fought against it. And they took it, and smote it with the edge of the sword, the king thereof, and all the cities thereof, all the souls that were therein. He left none of it remaining, according to all that he had done to Eglon, but destroyed it utterly, and all the souls that were therein. And then Joshua returned, and all Israel with him to Debir, and fought against it. And he took it, and the king thereof, and the cities thereof, and they smote it with the edge of the sword, utterly destroyed all the souls that were therein. He let none remaining, as he had done to Hebron, so he did to Debir, and unto the king thereof, as he had done thereof to Libnah, and also to her king. So Joshua smote all the country of the hills of the south, and of the vale, and of the springs, and of the kings. He left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed. And the Lord God of Israel commanded. And Joshua smote them from Kadesh Barnea even unto Gaza, and all the country of Goshen, even unto Gibeon. And all the kings and their land did Joshua take one at a time, take it one time, because the Lord of Israel fought for Israel. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him unto the camp of Gilgal. Chapter 11. And it came to pass, when Jabin, king of Hazor, had heard those things, that he sent to Joab, king of Madon, and to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Akshaph, and to the kings that were on the north of the mountains, and the plains south of Chinneroth, and in the valley, and in the borders of Dor, on to the west, and to the Canaanite on the east, and to the west, and to the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Jebusite in the mountains, and to the Hivite, and to Hermon in the land of Mizpah. And they went out, they and all their hosts with them, much people, even as the sand that is upon the seashore in multitude, with horses and chariots very many. And when all these kings were met together, they came and pitched together in the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And the Lord said unto Joshua, Be not afraid because of them, for tomorrow about this time will deliver them all slain before Israel. Thou shalt hoof their horses, burn the chariots with fire. And Joshua came, and all the people of war with him, and against them by the waters of Merom suddenly, and they fell upon them. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of Israel, who smote them and chased them unto great Sidon, and unto Misrephoth-maim, and unto the valley of Mizpeh eastward. And they smote them until they left them none remaining. And Joshua did unto them as the Lord bade them. He hoofed their horses and burned their chariots with fire. And Joshua at that time turned back and took Hazor and smote the king thereof with the sword, for Hazor before time was the head of all those kingdoms. And they smote all the souls that were therein with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them. There was not left any to breathe. And he burnt Hazor with fire. And all the cities of those kings and all the kings of them did Joshua take and smote them with the edge of the sword, and he utterly destroyed them, as Moses the servant of the Lord had commanded. And as for the cities that stood still in their strength, Israel burned none of them, save Hazor only. That did Joshua burn. And all the spoil of the cities and the cattle the children of Israel took for a prey unto themselves. But for every man they smote with the edge of the sword, until they had destroyed them, neither left they any to breathe. And the Lord commanded Moses his servant, so did Moses command Joshua, and so did Joshua. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord commanded Moses. And Joshua took all the lands, the hills, all the south country, the land of Goshen, the valley, the plain, the mountain of Israel, the valley of the same, even the Mount Halak that goeth to Seir, even unto Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon, under Mount Hermon. And all the kings he took, and smote them, and slew them. And Joshua made a war a long time with all those kings. There was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel, save the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. All other they took in battle. For it was the Lord to harden their hearts, that they should come against Israel in the battle, that he might destroy them utterly. And that they might have no favor, that he might destroy them, as the Lord commanded Moses. And at that time came Joshua, and cut off the Anakims from the mountains, from Hebron, from Debar, from Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah, and from all the mountains of Israel. Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities. There was none of the Anakims left in the land of the children of Israel, only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod they remained. So Joshua took the whole land, according to all that the Lord had said unto Moses, and Joshua gave it for an inheritance unto Israel, according to the divisions by the tribes, and the land rested from war.